الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue with this tremendous treatise entitled Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra by the great Imam Taqi Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Well, the time now is 8:01 p.m. Wednesday, March the 8th, 2023, which agrees on the Hijri calendar was technically Thursday night. It is the 17th of Sha'ban, the year 1444, the year 1443, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As we continue in the book by the great Imam, after he finished conveying the aqidah of the great Imam Abu Abdullah, Muhammad bin Abdullah ibn Abi Zamani, rahimahullah, was from the ulama of Qurtuba in his time. And like we mentioned, that book is a tremendous book in Aqidah, the Aqidah al-Salafiyyah, which you'll find from our great scholars of today, Shaykh Abdullah ibn Abdur Rahim al-Bukhari, hafidhullah wa checked the book and made commentary on that specific book. And you'll find in that book, Shaykh al-Islam was conveying his belief in some of these brief lines that he put inside of the book Al-Hamawiyyah. For verily you'll find that the great Imam, after he mentioned the aqidah of Ibn Abi Zamani in regards to the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find that he mentioned other affairs. The affairs that you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam was trying to convey to the people is how those who are upon the truth, they were united, and that what they mention is synonymous, meaning it's the same. Whether those scholars come from great remote distances, for those who embark upon seeking the truth, meaning seeking out the correct belief, or the pure orthodox Islam, for those who learned it correctly and educated themselves, and those who had taken their knowledge from the correct scholars, you'll find that their tongues are united in this affair. This affair of belief, you'll find that they're united in. And those who are upon Aqidah al-Salafiyyah in far regions or in far countries, it's as if you'll find that they're speaking with the exact same tongue, and that their affair is not what? Different in this matter. You'll find that every individual that listens to the lessons of those who are upon the correct belief find the same reality. The reality is as if they're speaking from one tongue. So Shaykh al-Islam, after he mentioned the affair about the aqidah of that great scholar Ibn Abi Zamani, he continues to mention in his book, he says, وَحَقَّقَهَا قَوْمٌ مِنَ الْمُثْبِتِينَ فَخَرَجُوا فِي ذَلِكَ إِلَى ضَرْبٍ مِنَ التَّشْبِيهِ وَالتَّكْيِيفِ وَإِنَّمَا الْقَصْدُ فِي السُّلُوكِ الطَّرِيقَةَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَةِ. This is what we already mentioned. We'll continue. Just to get everyone caught up to where we stopped. If you look in the book, he says, there are scholars, or there were people that actualized Allah's characteristics by affirming them. They were muthbitun. Muthbitun meaning they affirmed them. However, there were people from amongst them that went to extremes of affirmation, meaning affirming those attributes for Allah until they fell into tashbih. They fell into resembling the characteristics with the creation. And like we said, if you look to some of the books of the past, from them is the books of what they entitled Al-Milal wal-Nihal, like the different sects or the different parties that have deviated. you'll find that our religion is so complete that we even have those books and their histories of those who deviated and the different names. From them was a group called the Mushabbihah. There was a group of Mushabbihah, meaning people who affirmed the characteristics of Allah so much to the point where they fell into resemblance. They fell into resemblance, meaning likening Allah's characteristics with the creation. However, you'll find in these days and times, as Ahl al-Ilm mentioned, from them is our great Imam Muhammad al-Jami, rahimahullah, he said, وَلَكِنَّهُمْ انْقَلَضُوا. However, they became extinct. Meaning they're not around, you'll find a group by the name Mushabbihah. However, their aqidah or their belief is present. Because every mu'attil is mushabbih. Everyone that negates Allah's attributes is a resembler, as we'll explain in a minute. But he's talking about a firqa qa'imatun bidhatiha tusamma al-mushabbiha ghayru mawjudi, yani inqaradu. Meaning an actual sect entitled resemblers. They're extinct, even though you'll find that the ulama of the past and the milal wal nihal, like so, how you doing? Even though scholars of the past that they mentioned that there was a deviant sect called the Mushabbihah, however they became extinct. But you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam is mentioned in here, there are people that went to the extreme in that regard, meaning in the regard of affirmation. 454. From that regard, you'll find that the shaitan made them go so far and so in depth of that matter until they fell into deviation. They went into an extreme. So you'll find, like we said, the trick of the devil is to go to the children of Adam, meaning the human being, and either allow them or enable them to be either too lax or too what? Extreme in an affair. And this is from the tricks and the plots of the devil in order to destroy the children of Adam. So you'll find that these type of people went to the extreme of affirmation until they fell into resemblance and the affair of takyif, meaning, so when a person resembles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the creation, what did he do? He also showed how it is, which is also impermissible. So they fell into tashbih and takyif, meaning they're saying Allah's attributes is like this because it resembles this. So every mushabbih is a what? Mukayyif. Every resembler is a mukayyif, meaning, a person would say air conditioner, right? Every resembler is a mukayyif. But when we say mukayyif here, it does not mean air conditioner. Mukayyif here means one saying how Allah's attributes are. They know its reality and how it is. Or they act how it is. So every individual you'll find that has fell into this extreme, they fell into these two matters. So Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, he said, إِنَّمَا الْقَصْدُ فِي السُّلُوكِ الطَّرِيقَةُ الْمُسْتَقِيمَةِ. He said the intent or the goal is to stick to the straight path, in which Allah says Surah Al-Fatiha, between the two affairs, meaning not to go to the extreme in affirmation by falling into resemblance, nor go into the other extreme of negation until you fall into what? Negation or distortion. However, the moderate approach, rather the correct affair, is the moderate one. The straight path, we're not going to the extreme in either phase. He said, because, now listen to what Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, وَدِينَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى بَيْنَ الْغَالِ فِيهِ وَالْمُقَصِّرُ عَنْهُ. The religion of Allah is between that two affair, or those two matters, where either one is on the opposite side of the extreme, where they're either too hot or too cold, meaning either too extreme or too lax. And he used the words what? Al-ghali fi wal-muqassiru an. Al-ghali fi means extreme, wal-muqassiru an means being lax. He said, wal-asl fi hada, an al-kalaf al-sifat far'un an al-kalaf al-dhat. The origin or the foundation in this, as we just mentioned, the qa'idah, أن الكلام في الصفات فرع عن الكلام في الذات. That the origin in this is that what is correct, or the principle that we mentioned, is that speaking about Allah's characteristics is a branch of speaking about his essence. They emulate each other. And we said and explained this in previous classes. What do we say, everyone? A person might come and ask and say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends every night. Based upon how we apply this principle, we would say, explain to me how Allah, his essence is, meaning he himself. I don't know. If you don't know his essence, there's all the more reason you will never know his characteristics are. They emulate each other. You can't now understand a complete deity where he has no beginning, nor ending, nor does he subhanahu wa ta'ala have any need of anything. That you cannot comprehend about his essence. How much more do you think you will be able to comprehend his characteristics? So that's the meaning of the qa'idah in short that we mentioned in other classes that we said. This qa'idah, which is al-kalam fi sifat far'un 'an al-kalam fi dhat yuhtada fihi hadwa or yuhtada fihi hadwa wa mithal. Speaking about his characteristics is a branch of speaking about his essence. They emulate each other. What do they mean by that again, everyone? A person would say, how does Allah ascend? How does Allah descend? How is the hand of Allah? How is the descension of Allah? Or how will Allah come on the day of resurrection? A person would say, how is his essence? Meaning, how is he? Subhanahu. Meaning, can you even comprehend a complete deity that has no beginning and he has no ending and his knowledge is not preceded by ignorance? A person who's not arrogant would say, that's way beyond my comprehension. If that's the case about his essence, then how in the world you would think you will be able to comprehend his characteristics, such as his descension? That's the reason why we said, everyone, this particular principle that we're mentioning here. That is the meaning of it. So we mentioned this about 5 times, and there's no problem that we repeat it in order for the people to comprehend and grasp its understanding. So he goes on to say, فإذا كان معلوما أن إثبات الباري سبحانه إنما هو إثبات وجود لا إثبات كيفية فكذلك إثبات صفاته إنما هو إثبات وجود لا إثبات تحديد وتكييف. So Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say in his tremendous treatise, he said, if it's known that affirmation of our Lord al-Bari subhanahu, that is affirmation of an existence, meaning it's an affirmation of his characteristics and his names. And it's not an affirmation of looking for how it is. فَكَذَلِكَ إِثْبَاتُ صِفَاتِهِ. So now Shaykh al-Islam is explaining the qa'idah. Again, he's giving more clarity here. So what I mentioned, we gave an example. Now Shaykh al-Islam is giving his own example of how to clarify this principle. So he goes on to say, he said, affirmation of al-Bari, meaning Allah's existence, meaning his essence. We affirm that, we believe it. And it's an affirmation of his existence, of belief in those names, in those characteristics, not an affirmation of explaining how it is or asking how it is. He says, if that's the case about his essence, so listen to what he says. فَكَذَلِكَ إِثْبَاتُ صِفَاتِهِ إِنَّمَا هُوَ إِثْبَاتُ وُجُودٍ. He said, likewise, the affirmation of his characteristics is the same thing. The affirmation of the existence of them, of the names and attributes, not the affirmation of how it is and saying how it is, nor asking how it is. So he said, the essence of Allah and the characteristics of Allah, all of the same in their affirmation and and how one affirms them. And we know that we do not seek to know how Allah's existence is or how Allah, his essence is as far as how complete, because we know Allah's essence, the characteristics of his essence in regards to him having no beginning and no ending, we don't comprehend it. Likewise, his characteristics, the same thing. We do not know how they are, but we do affirm it. So they're both the same in that regard. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Or do I need to repeat it again? I'll repeat it one more time. Let's explain the principle one more time. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he says, the qa'idah, which is talking about Allah's characteristics, is a branch of speaking about His essence. They emulate each other. He said, or they're similar. What does he mean? How we deal with Allah's subhanahu wa ta'ala's characteristics. Well, first let's break this down and make it more simple. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's characteristics that they break down in what? Sifat dhatiyah, characteristics of His essence. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having no beginning, He has no ending. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees everything, He hears everything, He has knowledge of everything, He has power, absolute complete power, domination. That's from His character, that's from His essence. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the second category, which is what? Sifat of what everyone? What they call sifat. He has His that, and He has the sifat, and from them is His characteristics of His actions. For example, a person will say, what's an example of that? For example, Allah descension, Allah's ascension, Allah coming on the day of resurrection. So a person will say, how or what do we do in regards to these characteristics? Or what do we do in regards to His essence? We affirm it, the affirmation of existence, meaning we believe it firmly, we affirm its meanings without looking for how they are in regards to His essence. And the second category, just as we did with the first, we do the exact same thing. We affirm an affirmation of His names, His characteristics, and the meanings of them, not saying how they are, nor looking for how they are. Because what everyone? They emulate each other. So that's in regards to what we just mentioned. And that's what Shaykh al-Islam is intending here. So let's keep going. So that's basically where we stopped at last class. So let's start today on the new paragraph. So Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, فَإِذَا قُلْنَا يَدٌ وَسَمْعٌ وَبَصَرٌ وَمَا أَشْبَهَهَا فإنما هي صفات أثبتها الله لنفسه ولسنا نقول إن معنى اليد القوة والنعمة ولا معنى السمع والبصر العلم. So he goes on to say in the first part of the paragraph, Alhamdulillah, يهديكم الله ويصلح بالكم. He said, if we were to say, for example, yad, the hand of Allah. The hand of Allah is part of what characteristic, everyone? Yad is sifatun dhatiyah, characteristic of His essence. Sam'un, hearing, is a characteristic of what? His essence. Basarun is a characteristic of His essence. And anything similar to that. He says, فَإِنَّمَا هِيَ صِفَاتٌ أَثْبَتَهَا اللَّهُ. It's a characteristic that Allah has affirmed for Himself in His book and the authentic sunnah of His Prophet. He said, it is binding upon us not to say, إِنَّ مَعْنَ الْيَدِ الْقُوَّةِ. We do not say that the meaning of the hand of Allah is strength and His blessing. Nor the meaning of hearing and seeing is knowledge. We do not say they are body parts either, as we'll explain. ولا نشبهها بالأيدي والأسماع والأبصار التي هي جوارح وأدوات للفعل. He said, we do not say that they're body parts either. We don't say that. We don't say that they're jawarih. Nor do we resemble them with the hands of the creation, or the hearing of the creation, or the sight of the creation. He says, in which we describe as body parts for human beings. Or adawat, or utensils, or instruments that are utilized for actions. He said, when naqul, rather we say, is obligatory to affirm these characteristics because they're tawqif. What's tawqif mean? Meaning they are affirmed by pure revelation from what is established in the Book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and what the texts have narrated. It is obligatory to negate likening Allah to creation and resembling Allah to creation. Why? Because Allah, nothing is similar to Him. Nothing is similar to Him. When we say nothing is similar to Him, that's refuting who, everyone? The resemblers, or those who liken Allah to creation. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, He's all hearing and all seeing, He's refuting and rejecting who? The negators. So you'll find that Allah in His book refutes, in that particular ayah in Surah Al-Shura, refuting two groups, where He says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Nothing is similar to Him, meaning nothing is similar to Him, rejecting the call or the notion or the belief or the understanding of the resemblers, meaning those who resemble Allah to creation, or those who liken Allah to creation by saying Allah's face is like my face, or Allah's hand is like my hand, or Allah's hearing is like my hearing, or like the hearing of the creation. That's resemblance. That's likening, that is kufr. Is it clear, everyone? Then Allah in the same ayah, Surah Al-Shura, He refutes another group by saying, وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. He's all hearing, He's all seeing. He's refuting another group who are called the Mu'attila al-Nufa. Those who negate and say that Allah does not have any attributes, or those attributes do not mean what you hear or what you understand from them, rather what's intended is something else. So Allah is refuting all of those notions and all of those groups. So let's keep going. So Shaykh al-Islam said, at-tawqif, the end of tawqif warada biha. Why? Because text has brought this establishment or brought this understanding and affirmed these affairs. So it's obligatory for us to negate and remove likening Allah to creation. Because Allah, nothing is similar to Him. وَعَلَى هَذَا جَزَى قَوْلُ السَّلَفِ فِي أَحَادِيثَ الصِّفَاتِ هَذَا كُلُّهُ كَلَامُ الْخَطَّابِ. He said, upon this, the statement of the Salaf, who are the Sahaba and those who came after them, those generations that the Messenger of Allah praised, and narrations that affirms those characteristics of Allah. So the speech of Khattabi, the great Imam al-Khattabi, stops here. So notice, Shaykh al-Islam, he's bringing his proof of how all these scholars from different regions, from different different regions, lands, and how far they were between them, how they were all synonymous, meaning they were all the same. So Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah, he goes on to say, وهكذا قال أبو بكر الخطيب الحافظ في رسالة له أخبر فيها أن مذهب السلف على ذلك. He said, just likewise the next, the great Imam that every Muslim should know, this great scholar who's called Abu Bakr al-Khatib, who's known as al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, al-Hafiz, in his risala, in his treatise, in which he is entitled, in it, the madhab al-salaf, meaning what was the understanding of the pious predecessors in that affair. Who is al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, everyone? His name was Abu Bakr Ahmad ibn Ali. He's known, even with the students of knowledge, as al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, the great Imam. He has a book entitled Tarikh Baghdad. And that was from his greatest of treaties, or from the greatest of his treaties. And rather, you'll find that the scholars praised that book so much. They said if he would have authored that book alone, that would suffice to show the high status of his knowledge. In his book entitled Tarikh Baghdad. Despite of him just writing that book, and that mere book, as we mentioned, said, would establish him as being a great Imam from our scholars of this religion. Despite of that, he wrote 100 books. 100 great books. From books of hadith in which the students of knowledge rely upon. And he has a book and so many in which the students of knowledge need it in ahadith. From them is the great book called Al-Kifaya. Al-Kifaya fi Usul al-Riwaya. He has so many books. The great Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi. In addition to that, he has another book, for example, titled Al-Faqih wal-Mutafaqih, which is another tremendous book. He has a book of Taqyeed al-Ilm. It's another tremendous book. And we could go on and on and on and on about the great Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah. Al-Khatib, his name was Al-Khatib Ahmed ibn Ali al-Baghdadi, Sahib al-Tarikh al-Baghdadi. As we know, he was from those great scholars that were very vast in their knowledge. You'll find that al-ilm, as we said, وَلَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ سِوَى التَّارِيخ لَكَفَاهُ. If there were the only book he would have authored was the book of Tarikh Baghdad, or the history of Baghdad, that would suffice. Which showed like his vast knowledge and how great his ittila', meaning his awareness of those books and what they contain, and certain other affairs, how vast it was. And despite of that, like we said, he authored 100 books, which are more famous than what we can describe in this rujala, in this field in which we're trying to mention. Just to give everyone a glimpse of this great Imam, his high status, in order for one to know that what he says is considered. And it has an impact on the Muslims because he was from those scholars that were recognized of that scholarly caliber that he was upon. And that what he mentions of belief has what? Tremendous consideration. And that it's accepted in the hearts of the Muslims when he says it. So this is what he mentions, it says. He said, وَهَكَذَا قَالَ أَبُو بَكْرِ الْخَطِيبِ الْحَافِظ فِي رِسَالَةٍ لَهُ أخبر فيها أن مذهب السلف على ذلك. He also mentioned that the risala of the Salaf are upon that. Fine, so let's keep going. When we mentioned it said, let's backtrack just a little bit, everyone. فَإِذَا قُلْنَا يَدْ, if we say hand of Allah, like what belongs to Allah is a hand, for example, it was two hands. Or hearing and sight and anything similar to that. As we know, the characteristics of hearing and sight of Allah is those characteristics of His essence. And for example, the characteristics of His actions such as ascension and descension and coming on the day of resurrection. He said all those affairs, we do the exact same thing in regards to what we do as far as in affirming it, and what we do as far as in avoiding what is impermissible, such as, like we said, negating or resembling. All of them are the same in that regard. So now he explains. Now this is what he says. فَإِنَّمَا هِيَ صِفَاتٍ أَثْبَتَهَا اللَّهُ. Allah has affirmed it for Himself, and no one is more knowledgeable about Allah except Allah. And what the message of Allah ﷺ has revealed, of Allah has revealed to His Messenger ﷺ in regards to Him subhanahu. So we do not describe Allah, nor do we consider no one is more knowledgeable about Allah than Allah. وَلَسْنَا نَقُولُ, for example, he says, we do not say, the Muslims, that the hand of Allah means quwwah. The hand of Allah means His strength, or His power, or His ni'mah. Now listen to this. لا نزعم أن اليد على ظاهرها لا تليق بالله. We do not claim that the hand of Allah is upon, for example, its apparent meaning where we say it does not befit Allah. We don't say that. That's a statement upon Allah without any knowledge. وَخُوضٌ فِي صِفَاتِ اللَّهِ, and partaking in the characteristics of Allah without the permission of Allah. We do not say the hand of Allah means His quwwah, means His power or His strength. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ الْيَدْ. Now listen to what the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami says. He said linguistically, if you go to the speech, or the language of the Arabs, he says linguistically amongst themselves, you can now bring sentences in the Arabic language where hand can mean what? Strength. Or it can mean power. Or it can mean ni'mah. وَتَأْتِي بِمَعْنِ الْقُدْرَةِ. He said, and it can mean ability, depending on the context and depending on the occasions of what you said in that particular sentence and how the people will understand it, depending on how you would phrase it and how the context is utilized. However, he says, if we say, for example, Allah, and we describe Allah with hand, we do not say that. It does not bring any probability except it's a characteristic that befits Allah. And we say it's a hand of Allah. The hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we do not say no. It does not mean an actual hand. It means those other things or those other things. It says, for another example, we do not say it's a body part. We don't say jariha. It's just like, for example, our hands. Nor do we say, similar to how we would say with our hands, blessing, might, power, or what have you, in regards to what we describe our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala by those characteristics that He affirmed for Himself. It is not permissible for us to explain the characteristics of Allah from ourselves. As long as our Lord did not explain it in what He has revealed, or what He has revealed to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what the Messenger of Allah explained, because the Messenger of Allah was the trustworthy one for revelation. He was the one that was given and entrusted to explain it after it was revealed to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is not permissible for anyone to say anything about those characteristics of Allah from themselves at all. Those who claim that the hand of Allah, for example, they say that it's upon its apparent meaning by saying no. The apparent meaning it resembles Allah, our hands, for example. They have what? Misunderstood what is appropriate and what is correct. They thought that the apparent meaning of hand, what automatically comes to one mind, that it's the hand of a human being, like our hands or like our body parts. So in this regard, every person that now says that, for example, I don't believe Allah is above. Matter of fact, I'll give a more contemporary example of what we see and what I've heard on numerous occasions from some certain people. Allah is not above. And you say, why? I don't believe my Lord sits on a chair. What did He do? He fell into resemblance. So in his mind of what he thought, that the characteristic of Allah being above necessitates that Allah sits, he fell into resemblance and likened Allah to creation. What was the second step? The second thing that came after that is what? He negated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not above. So they resemble first, and then they what? Negated second. So they fell into both of those. And there's not anyone that you'll find that negates or distorts the attributes of Allah except that they fell into resemblance. That's the reason why they negated it. That's the reason why they distorted it. So every mushabbih, every individual that likens Allah to creation is a what? Negator. Every mushabbih or mumathil, every resembler, or everyone that likens Allah to creation is a what? Is a negator. So that's the reason why you'll find that Ahl Ilm say that. Another thing, or another example, they'll say, why don't you believe Allah descends? How is it that Allah can descend? Descend like this, like how I go down the steps? Or how is Allah descend? Meaning, that would necessitate He's mixed with the creation, so now He's become merged. What did He do? He fell into resemblance. He fell into resemblance. What's the second step? He fell into negation. Because in his mind he says, I don't know, how does Allah descend? That would mean He had to descend like how I descend from a chair or from a high lofty place and I come down. And that would necessitate that what did you do? What are you doing? In your thoughts, in your mind, you're resembling Allah to creation. The second evil that you're falling into after the first one is that you're now what? You negated. And say, no, that doesn't befit Allah. So, in his mind of his so-called glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has to now what? Negate it. So he fell into resemblance. Then he secondly what? After that, fell into negation. You'll find that the great Imam Ibn Uthaymeen said there's a third step of some of them. He said they resemble Allah to creation, then they fell into negation, then they fall to resemblance again. What is resemblance again? Meaning they resemble Allah with things that do not exist. You'll find that some of them say Allah does not have any name or attribute. So they fell to resemblance twice. I'll say it again. They resemble Allah of the creation. I'll give them one more example again. They said, if you used to ask one of them, why? You don't believe Allah is above the creation? They said, no. Why? Some of them will say, I don't believe my Lord sits. What did they just do? Resemblance. I don't believe that Allah can be above because that would necessitate that all the distance around him will contain him. What did he do? Resemblance. You resemble Allah to creation. What's the second step after that, everyone? What's the second step? I don't believe it. So what did he do when he said that? He negated it. I don't believe that. Not realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created from the makhluqat, things that are above and does not need to recline on anything or sit on anything to be above it. And that's from things that Allah created. How much more for the Creator himself? Allah is created from the affairs or from the creation that's above us all the time. It does not need to sit on anything. Nor does it need anything in order for it to be above us. And despite of that, it's above us all the time. So if this affair is something that's affirmed for something Allah created, then why can't you affirm that for Allah? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be above and at the same time not need anything. Why? Because in their minds they resemble Allah with the creation, and at the same time what? They fell into negation. Then you'll find from the great Imam Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin that he mentioned said there's a third step for them where they now fell into resemblance again. Where you'll find أَنَّهُمْ يُشَبِّهُونَ اللَّهِ بِالْمَعْدُومَاتِ, where they resemble Allah with things that don't exist. For example, they'll say Allah is not above, Allah is not below, Allah is not to the right nor to the left. He's not above the throne, He's not under it, nor is He to the right of it, nor to the left of it. What did this individual do? He resembled Allah with what? Something that doesn't exist. Ultimately, what does it lead to, everyone? Atheism. Full-blown, burning atheism. You now made Allah and likened Him with non-existence. Whereas if you negate His names and attributes, you resemble Him with al-ma'doom, something that don't exist. That's the reason why you'll find that the Salaf, they used to say the statement, Inna Allah, inna al-mushabbiha ya'buduna salaman. Wa innama al-mu'attila ya'buduna adaman. There's a great statement by the Salaf. This profound statement. Everyone go back to it if they can find a complete one. It's a tremendous statement that everyone should hold on to with their mullet teeth. He said, verily the resemblers, those who liken Allah to creation, they worship a sanam. They worship an idol. He says, وَإِنَّمَا الْمُعَطِّلَ يَعْبُدُونَ عَدَمًا. He said the negators, they worship something that don't exist. And he said the Ahl Sunnah, they worship a ilahan wahidan kamilan. Then they worship the people who are in the middle. They worship a deity, affirming Him of what is affirmed for Himself and negating from Him what He's negated from Himself, meaning those characteristics of imperfection, such as forgetfulness and sleep and exhaustion and having children and having a partner to the end of the nonsense. So you'll find how that statement of the Salaf is tremendous. He said, verily the resemblers worship a sanam. They worship a what? A paganistic type of idol. And he said that the negators, they worship something that doesn't exist. And Ahl Sunnah worship the what? The deity in which the affairs are in its moderate approach, where they affirm for Allah what He has affirmed for Himself, and they negate from Allah of those characteristics of imperfection of what He's negated from Himself. Is it clear, everyone? So you'll find that what we mentioned is said, the first step is again what, everyone? The first step is resemblance. Then the second step is what? Negation. There's not anyone that negates, or there's not anyone that negates except that they fall into tashbih, and vice versa. And it's not anyone that resembles except that they fall into negation. This word jariha, or body part, was never used by the Salaf. It was a word and a term that was used from those who wanted to come and instill doubt in the Muslims concerning their Lord and the names and attributes that He has, that belongs to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they wanted to instill doubt, so they came with these words: jawarih, body part, or limb. So they wanted to try to confuse you. So they said, you believe Allah has a hand? You say yes. They said, so that means you believe He has a body part or limb? It's a word that the people who've been affected by Greek philosophy and by so-called Greek rationality to try to use this word to throw doubt and instill doubt and cast doubt in your heart concerning Allah's names and attributes. So it was a word that was what? Initially brought from them. They're the one that came with it and introduced it to the Muslims. So when they tried to come with these words, the Muslims became confused. So they didn't know how to reply to that particular comment or that statement. So Ahlul Sunnah came in order to combat that type of belief by saying to them, first of all, the word limb or body part was never used from the Sahaba. They never used it. Nor is it in the book of Allah, nor is it in the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. So we should stay away from it. Because it's a word that necessitates what? Truth and falsehood at one time. Jawarih, body part. So that's what you'll try to now affirm for them by saying, first of all, negate the word body part and limb. Take it out your vocabulary in regards to Allah. Number two, what do you intend by the word limb or body part? That's what you say. Do you mean body part like the body, like the human being, or like an animal, or like from the creation? Is that what you're intending? Because we don't believe that. Because that's resemblance. Resembling Allah with the creation is kufr. If you intend by so-called body part, meaning a so-called characteristic that in the general meaning, yes, it agrees with the general sense of the word with the creation, but after it is now used in a context was connected with Allah, and where it's connected with the creation, there's no resemblance between them at all. That's what you intended. That is the meaning that we affirm. Even though generally the word body part and limb in regards to Allah should not be used at all, because it's a word that can necessitate truth and falsehood. Those are the matters that one needs to avoid. Keep in mind, these type of words that were utilized from those who are affected by Greek philosophy came with these type of terms to instill doubt in your belief in regards to Allah and His names and attributes in which you affirm for Him. That's the reason why these words are very tricky. And that's the reason why the people of falsehood will utilize them in front of your face in order for you to be in a state of reluctancy and doubt by affirming these attributes. So they come with these trick words. They'll say, for example, you believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in a place. The word place is the same thing. So place should not be used in this origin. However, it's a word that can necessitate truth and falsehood. If you mean by the word, so that brings you to the other questions we said a moment ago. This is what you would say. Number one, take the word place out of your vocabulary in regards to what we use concerning our Lord. That's number one. Number two, the word place can necessitate what? Truth and falsehood. If you mean or intend by the word place, a place meaning it can contain Allah, or a place that surrounds Allah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now has been bounded or contained in a place from all the distances that surround it, then that's a false meaning. We do not believe it. If you intend by the word place, meaning that Allah is bigger than everything, even the distances, He's bigger than everything, nothing contains Him, and He is bigger than everything, and He encompasses everything of the creation do not encompass Him at all, that is the meaning of the haqq, or that's the truth that we believe, and that's the affair that we affirm. But the origin is that the word makan or place should not be used, because it's a word that can bring what? confusion and doubt if you do not know what is intended by it. And similar to that is all the other words that are used concerning Allah in this regard. From the word, for example, makan, and the word jihad, direction. It's from those other words. We could go on and on about those words that should not be used in its origin. But if the person uses it, then it has to be sought what they're intending by it. Because it can imply a false meaning, or it can imply what everyone, or it can imply a true meaning. But in its origin, they should not be used at all. Place, body part, tanaqqul, moving. None of those matters come in the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those type of words causes confusion and it causes doubt as far as the aqidah of the Muslims. And as a result of it, they fall into these great atrocities in as far as tainting the aqidah of a Muslim before he meets Allah, which is of the most dangerous of affairs. To have some doubt about their Lord, or his names and attributes, and meeting him upon that can necessitate a great punishment waiting for someone, wal-iyadha billah, if they die in that state. That's the reason why these affairs, we speak about them. We now encourage that the Muslims stay away from those who come with this type of speech to instill doubt, because certain people, if they do not have proper knowledge about these matters, and there's a shaitan out there waiting, and can come to you with this type of tempting speech that sounds in its origin very decorated, but behind it is something very satanic, and as a result of it, you embrace it, believe it, you'll go astray. You could die upon that belief and meet Allah upon that doubt. And we know from the shurut and the conditions of La ilaha illallah is what everyone? Is yaqeen, surety. Which goes against what everyone? A shak, the opposite of his doubt. That's from the conditions of La ilaha illallah. It's to be upon yaqeen, surety. Never meeting Allah in the state of doubt. Surety only comes with what? Knowledge. That's why you'll find that knowledge comes before yaqeen in the conditions of La ilaha illallah. Why? Because there's no one that can have surety except that they have to have knowledge. You can never have surety based upon emotions and feelings, because feelings and emotions can change. You can feel one day today and feel another way tomorrow. Something that's established upon true surety that will never change, will establish it in your heart, is the knowledge. That's why we know that from the conditions of La ilaha illallah is number one is what everyone? Is what? Is ilm. Comes before yaqeen. وفي الشهادة علم القلب مشترط يقينه القلب قبول ليس يفتقد إخلاصك الصدق فيها مع محبتها كذا الولاء والبراء فيها لها عمل فيه توالي أولي التقوى وتنصره وكل أعدائه إلا لهم عدو. Beautiful poetry. Brings all the conditions of La ilaha illallah. And notice it says وفي الشهادة علم القلب مشترط يقين القلب انقياد قبول ليس يفتقد إخلاص صدق فيها مع محبتها كذا الولاء والبراء فيها لها عمل فيه توالي أولي التقوى وتنصره وكل أعدائه إلا لهم عدو. طيب, that shows that the conditions of La ilaha illallah, from them is knowledge, and after that knowledge, if you fully believe it and you fully embrace it, what will come and what will inherit is what everyone? Surety. No one wants to meet Allah on the day of resurrection in doubt, especially concerning his names and attributes. They're the most dangerous of affairs, and that's the reason why we teach the people what is correct, so can avoid what will cause doubt. Doubt is a very dangerous state. No one wants to meet Allah on the day of resurrection in a state of doubt. You want to come on the day of resurrection in the state of what, everyone? Surety. Nothing wavering, not any reluctancy, not any thought. Maybe, perhaps, no. You want to come on the day of resurrection, everything you taught this class, you know you're going to actualize it when you die. It's going to be actualized when you die. When you come on the day of resurrection, you're going to see your Lord above you. You will see Allah come on the day of resurrection with angels upon angels upon angels. Why? Because you studied it in the dunya and you had surety concerning it. So when those affairs play out, you see it in front of your face, it was nothing new you was expecting. That's how you're supposed to be in your aqidah and your belief as far as a Salafi Sunni that truly wants to die in the pleasing state to Allah. Is it clear, everyone? We'll stop here, inshallah. continue tomorrow around the same time. So those are the matters that you'll find that the great Imam Abu Bakr al-Khatib will mention this tomorrow. Also, you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam will mention of the great Imam. From them is Abu Bakr al-Ismaili. He has a book in Aqidah, by the way, which is called Aqidah of the Sunnah al-Jama'ah by Abu Bakr al-Ismaili. I did it. I finished it. From one of the scholars of Kuwait who died from my father. His name was Shaykh Zayd bin Hudays al-Dawsari, rahimahullah. And I went through the whole book with him, just me and him alone. Went through the whole book of Aqidah of the Sunnah al-Jama'ah by Abu Bakr al-Ismaili, which is another book that some of us are not familiar with, which is a book in Aqidah, which we'll talk about tomorrow, inshallah. So we'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.